Nubian guys and goddesses, TBwahid in the living room, Black Living Room Talk. I have with me King Aijalon, the Ansubu, Queen Pamela, and Kelly Kit. I'm going to ask you to sit back and relax. We are talking about institutional racism. I'm going to ask the Ansubu, would you please start it off, this conversation?
Welcome, and thank you for having me in Black Living Room Talk. This is King Aijalon, the Ansubu of Loyal Command. Please get with us, www.loyalcommand.com. Today we're going to be talking about institutional racism, and we're going to be clear. Racism is the ability from one group to control an institution from giving people access or no access. Bigotry, discrimination, and prejudice can be aimed at a person's color, hair type, body size, skin tone. But institutional racism is the ability of an organization, a government, or some type of system or institution to deny a people based on their race. Black people cannot be racist to any other group of people in the United States of America and basically on Earth. Because we never deny a person access because there are Arab, Asian, European, Hispanic, or any other racial types or ethnic groups. So I just want us to be clear, when we talk about institutional racism, we're talking about the ability to stop a whole race from doing something inside a system or institutional structure.
Absolutely. I think that is the epic and the most truthful explanation that can be given. You talk about the redlining and everything else. That you just explained all of that without even mentioning it. Are we going to Miss Kelly Kit or Queen Pam? Who's taking it up?
What I'd like to say is actually here in the UK there has been a report that said that there is no racism in the UK. Basically, a national report. And my thing is, when it comes to institutional racism, they make a lot of effort to implement it, and also they make a lot of effort to make you believe it's not there. So it's like a form of gaslighting where they continuously create these situations where a lot of people of what they call ethnic minorities, I don't believe in that term, but that's how that's the status we've been given, and they create these situations and make it look like it's not happening, and I feel that's what creates a sense of psychological trauma to a lot of people, where they feel that they can see the racism that's happening to them, but they're not being heard and they're not being acknowledged. So I feel that now is really the time where people are starting to speak out a lot more about it, and it's becoming a bit more apparent. Whereas you can't deny it, but they're still trying to make all the efforts they can to make people believe that it's not there. Right now here in the UK, that's what's happening. So, you can understand that that's something that is a conversation that needs to be had. It's a conversation that needs to be in everybody's mouth, where we have to speak up about the racism, but at the same time we have to find solutions. How do we stop that institutional racism? And the only way I feel we can stop that from happening is by us creating our own institutions, basically. And yeah.
And what you said a few minutes ago, Miss Kelly Kit, what you said a few minutes ago when you said that they're not, some of our people really don't look at racism or something, or they want to act like they don't see it or something, because they're not being heard, or they just, if they don't see it, as long as they're not being heard, and that's even sadder. I'm not saying exactly how you said it, but
yeah, it is sad because it's happening. It's been happening for so long, but it constantly is being dismissed. So
Yeah.
it's becoming something that people are becoming accustomed to. They're trying to fit in within that
Sort of like
system of
numb. Yes. Kind of like a numbing. Wow.
And that's how that creates a lot of coonery, a lot of traitors, a lot of backstabbers within the black community, because they no longer want to fight the system. They just want to exist, meaning they become, instruments of destruction within the community, basically.
Wow, that's deep. That's really profound. That's Miss.
And I think we've seen that recently with the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. That's an example of the type of destruction that we can have in certain communities, basically. And it's always done in a way where the person has no choice, and they've been put their back against the wall, and they feel like they can't do anything else, basically. And that's because of the institution that we're in and the mindsets that are there. So yeah, that's basically my take on that.
Okay, Miss Queen Pamela.
To your point, we do have a group of black folks that are still trying to assimilate into society and acclimate themselves to be accepted. But right now, more than ever in this 21st century, we're seeing the covers being pulled back and showing the whole institutional race idea of racism is showing its ugly head. It's just right there, open for all its sores and scars and ugliness is being shown, and people are really starting to understand that this does exist. It exists towards the people, and how it has affected these people over, several generations. I mean, just recently there was a talk show host, I think it's called The Talk, where Sharon Osbourne created a big stink with her response to another young lady on that show who happened to be African American, and told her, gave her an earful about what she was allowed or not allowed to do when she got emotional behind the topic. The idea for this white woman to tell this black woman to teach her about racism because she couldn't see it was, when you don't see what's going on, and it's right there openly in front of you every day, you're seeing something happen, but since it doesn't affect you, since it's not incorporated in your line of sight in your whole world that you live in, it doesn't exist. It was just really sad to see how that played out on national television with these two women. And then it's become a topic on social media on how Cheryl Underwood responded and how she should have.
So what was the one woman?
Sharon, yes. I mean, I'm just talking about, that was a prime example of what we're talking about right now, where her voice wasn't heard, where she had to cower down and not say really what was on her heart to create a sense of peace and not really go where she wanted to go, I'm sure. She had to save face, basically. Now, why is it okay for this white woman to go off and talk about racism and get all in her feelings and get all in this other black co-host face, and she's not allowed to respond, because then she would be the black angry woman. But the thing is, what we're seeing in society today is just the curtains being pulled back on this really, really ugly thing called institutional racism. And I don't think maybe 50 years ago that's what we called it. We knew it exists, but now I think with the advancement of technology and social media, people catching certain things on camera and on tape, it's just right there, readily available for us to see how, the Karens, that situations that people come across where they have a sense of entitlement, where you can't walk down or be in a certain area without the press questioning you or what you're doing, or if you're in a restaurant or whatever it is you're doing, minding your own business. You can be in your own home, in your own home, and have someone come in and kill you, and there's no justice. But I think there's the belly of the beast is about to just boil over.
Yeah.
We're seeing this, and we're thinking that we have no recourse to all the institutional, like, racism and things that we're dealing with on a daily basis, and it's just injustice overall. And you've got a group of a generation of people coming up saying that time is over for marching and singing and getting on our knees and praying and looking to do harm to another group of people that are putting their knees on our neck. Now, I don't advocate violence at all, but I'm just saying that the atmosphere is raw and it's really getting to a boiling point right now. When we saw the thing with George Floyd, and not just in Minnesota, not just in the U.S., but across the world, people saw the injustice done to that man, and they started rioting and going out in the street and speaking out and being against this type of just plain evilness. So it exists and it's there, and I don't have a solution on how to end it, but I think we have to be able to come together as just beings in this world and respect one another and be able to have those hard conversations, because as Blacks, particularly in America, when you have institutional racism, that held us back against owning homes, owning land, owning businesses, getting an education. Our whole lives were stunted, and our growth was stunted. Whereas white men was able to get those loans and create generational wealth for his family, and grow and live and prosper. Whereas we were thought of as an afterthought, a byproduct is what the Bible says in Scripture. But it's a conversation that has to be had. We have to talk about it, and it has to be, people think because it happened so many generations ago, why are you still belly aching about it? Why are Black people still crying about it? What wasn't me? But you reap the benefits from a system that held a people back. And that's the conversation that has to be had. And it's hard when you're dealing with a race of people that are in denial because they have that one Black friend, or because they have that a Black marriage in their family, that it's okay, that they're okay, that they understand. It's hard because when we as a people start something, it chronologically, you can just look at your history. When we push back against this institutionalized racism that we've experienced, somehow or another, that project, that program, whatever it is stumped out, snuffed out, and we're back at ground zero again, either by the organization's person that's involved, it's maybe a leader being murdered, killed, or assassinated, are selling out to the man for. So it's just as a big piece of as a huge issue, and it's not anything that's going to be solved overnight, but it could come with at least the elite, the powers that be, recognizing that there's a problem, and it's real, and it affects a group of people that have been held back for over several generations. So I see the fact that our eyes are opening and that things are becoming more blatant, that there is some hope. Yeah.
I want to take a break right now, a second, and we'll come right back. Is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll be right back. We'll be right back, Nubian guys and goddesses. All right, we're back. We're back with the Nubian guys and goddesses. And we still have lots to say. I hope you guys are enjoying yourself. So, we're talking about institutional racism. And Miss Queen Pam, I agree with you. The racism is blatant. And, while you were saying that, I was just listening and I was thinking, actually, covert or overt, it really is, it never stopped being blatant. Because the reason I say that is because when I was learning and my dad was teaching me and growing up, it's like I learned he told us how to look for that, in the body language, the mannerisms, the eyes, the whole total face and body, and in, the tone of voice. So it's always been there. They just don't think, they think most of us don't know that, some people don't. I've told a lot of people and they said, you know what, come to think of it, you're right. They do this all the time because they want to remain in control. They want to it's like they want to prove to themselves that everybody else is beneath them. Everybody else is subordinate to them. You just, when you see it, you really want to do something, but you learn how to deal with it in a more intellectual way. And then when you give it to them, it's like they don't really know what hit them, but they're angry because you picked it up. That's all I have to say on the matter, on my part.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's like they try really hard to make you not see it or make you believe it's not there, and then when you see it, it makes them mad, so they try to reverse it on you.
Yes.
And say that you're the angry person.
Yes.
We didn't do anything. Your response
yes.
is the problem, not what you're responding to, basically.
Yes.
So it's a form of emotional abuse, basically, and the more we stand up to it, the more I think it's more about how we need to learn how to respond to the racism in a way where we don't fall into their traps, because it's done in a way where it entraps us into, because we're obviously going to be trying to protect ourselves or try to defend ourselves to what they're doing. It's a natural response, and now they're using our natural response and reflexes against us by taking us down and locking us up into jail and taking away the men in the families, and they just done it in a way where it became an institution, and now it's for us to learn how to counteract it and just to be smarter than them. It's like a game of chess and be steps ahead. We know that they're creating this pandemic for people to start reacting. I mean, I saw a video the other day of a bunch of black people fighting inside a public environment during the pandemic, and that's the type of information they need to create the narratives where we stay locked up, the type of information they need to create the narratives where they can target us on the street for no reason because they believe that's how we're going to act. So we need to learn how to behave ourselves better in their environments, knowing they need our downfalls for them to be successful, basically. You know, they need our mistakes for them to run their businesses, which are their prisons and their, you know, their systems. They need us to fall.
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
We need to learn to stand, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Right.
And I hate to say it, but now I remember, and that's one of the reasons why Mama used to always say, she'd say, now, you want to act like you got some sense while you out here. And I used to wonder why she'd say that. That I had to act a certain way around these people. You know, that's how I'm thinking now. Because Daddy said, you know, because Daddy was, you know, he was a little bit more deep with it. I mean, Mama had it, but that's what that brings to my mind. Like, you know, I got it. We do it all the time anyway. We switch gears at work, you know, like as far as speaking, you know, we can talk the slang, and then when we go to work, it's a whole nother environment most of the time. But yeah, hold your head up with some dignity. That's all that was. I mean, she was teaching it to us right there, you know, to hold yourself up. You are somebody, you know, don't. But I was a kid and I didn't understand it, you know.
My dad used to teach us, don't hang out in crowds. I never used to understand why he said that to us. Don't hang out in crowds.
Yeah.
Don't do certain things. And I used to think, why would you tell me not to hang out in a crowd? Is that all my friends? Like, I love being in my crowd of friends. It's only when I got older that I understood that when you walk in a crowd, you attract situations.
Yeah, absolutely.
Problems. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so that's when that's a lot of, and as young people, we don't want to hear that. We don't want to hear that you can't be with your friends or whatever. So I feel like it would have been good if we'd understood why. What it means. What it means to the white people to see us in crowds. They don't want us to see in the crowd, because even seeing black people united together, happy and not fighting is a threat to them. You know?
Yeah.
Any form of unity on our part is a threat to them.
Because I was always told that anytime they see two of us together, they, you know, I guess from slavery times, you know, when two slaves would get together and talk, they think they're strategizing or something. That's what I was told. I was like, wow, okay. But they do look at you funny when two of you are gathered somewhere in the hall talking.
So, I would like to go back to what Queen Pam said, and also what Kelly Kid said. I'll bounce off of it. I'm not going to repeat what they said. So with institutional racism, there's another component that's never talked about, and that's called the culture of racism. Institutional racism is when you go to one of their institutional organizations, they don't have to accept you, or you have to code switch as they accept you. But the culture of racism is when we deal with Sharon Osbourne. The culture of racism is everybody knows their place. We know what goes on. We don't say nothing about it. And since you do get to work at Paramount or CBS or at your record company, or become a senator or a House representative, or you get to work for your own self, right? Inside the culture of racism, be happy that you're not a slave. Look at your position. Look at your paycheck. And so, under the culture of racism, we're seeing Cheryl. She had to refrain herself. she could not say what was on her mind because in the culture of racism, racism is the norm. And so since it's the normal for white people to accuse one inside the culture of racism, it's like you just betrayed them. And so she had to certify and verify that Sharon, the way Cheryl sees her, is not as a racist. But the guy that they're talking about was the racist. But inside the culture of racism, if you attack one of racist, that same indoctrination, that same education, that same privilege, that same, what do we call it? Entitlement is established for all of them. And so they automatically feel guilty if you point out the people that they associate with, because those are the levels of mentalities. That is a similar mentality or the same mentality. And so I was a little disappointed in Cheryl because she was a microcosm of all of us in some type of way, where we confront these things and we see these things, but when we speak about it, racism, the cultural racism will weaponize itself against us for even mentioning that someone in another white person's circle is practicing racism, prejudice, or discrimination, and that you are guilty by association and affiliation. And so when we examine the culture of racism, it allows Europeans to leave Europe and to go claim other people's lands, and to build institutions that other people have to come into on their land, which they call schools and jobs and religious institutions. That is racism. Their culture is racism. And I'm going to clarify something that Queen Pam said, that I can't fathom a world where there's no racism. Because if you go to China, China has Chinese institutions. And so therefore, you are an outsider. The institution is Chinese and they don't have to serve you. But if you come as a dignitary, a diplomat, or an ambassador, right, then they will serve you according to their custom of dealing with visitors or ambassadors. But if you're just coming into their space because you want to go live in China and you think it's your privilege or your entitlement, they don't have to accept you. Now, as far as the Negro, the African American, or the Negropean, we don't have a space. Anybody can invade our space. And so we look at it from a point of this, I just wish we can get rid of racism. I wish we can do this. Why? Because we're not saying that out of a flag. We're not saying that with a military. We're not saying that with our own anthem. We're saying that as a group of people inside someone else, and that we won't never have any peace, or we will never have a great advancement unless other people participate. Because in this culture of racism, the institutions are racist. Because the racist is the people who produced it. And for us to act like we can pray racism, or we can discuss racism, or that we can negotiate with a racist genetic code and mindset, that their institutions include us, is racist in itself. Because what we need to be saying to each other, if I go to Mexico, those institutions are for the Mexicans. The German institutions are for the Germans. So the Chinese come over here and create their own institution. So do the Mexicans, the Honduras, the Guatemalans, the Spanish, the French, the people from India. And now the brothers and sisters come from Africa. They're starting to create their own institutions. And so, backing what Kelly Kidd said earlier, the only way you can defeat institutional racism is not to enter their institutions and to create your institution. You are forever at the mercy of institutional racism because they have a disclaimer. We have the right to refuse service to anyone. And you can create your own institutions and serve yourself. And that's where we're at, based off what Queen Pamela also said, right? That the wake up is real. I'm rephrasing what she said, but more people are being aware. But whether white people and other people are aware, it doesn't solve the issue until we create our own institutions. We will forever be a part of institutional racism and cultural racism until we create our own institutions for our children and our children's children. The dream world of having institutions for everybody is something that they made up in American dream. But when you wake up from the dream, you see in the beginning, other people had their own lands, they had their own culture, they had their own diet, and they had their own language. Somebody put everybody in America and say, hey, the ideal is for everybody to be mixed up and be equal. No, that's what the aristocrats said. Like Pamela mentioned, the elite. Well, let's stop saying elite. Let's say these white folks.
Absolutely.
Let's say these white folks, and you just name it what it is. They're not elite. They're a group of white folks, right, who decide what game our minds are supposed to be in, which we call matrix, or a certain mindset or mind trick, and that we have the right to give truth that will change the narrative. And it doesn't do us a good as a group if we don't take that truth and put it into institutions globally. And that's what Law of Command's aim is, to be able to take the first graders, the second graders, the third graders, the fourth, fifth grade, all over the world who are African, put them on the same page, where they'll have their own institution, well, but they can consume a healthy diet that is for their phenotype, that is for their biological molecular structure. Yes, you can eat anything you want. Is it good to eat anything you want? No. Yes, you can read anything that you want. Is it good to read anything you want? No. Sometimes we have to have specific things to produce a healthy society or a healthy people, especially when we're dealing with global racism, which was started in India around 6,000 years ago through caste system. And that's why they call themselves Indo-Europeans. So I'm going to conclude this, that Europeans and others produce a culture of racism because in their doctrines and in their religious institutions, the darker people, when you study their theology, that the black race was a race of servants, even though we're the original. So if we take our perspective as the original and everything else came out of us, doesn't mean they're us, they came out of us, and we find ourselves globally, we will globally start producing institutions and doing the things that we like to do and smile and enjoy ourselves, because we don't have to hold ourselves up to someone else's standard. We can choose to look at each other and hold up ourselves to our own morality, our own moral standard, our own ethical code. And so, in conclusion, with institutional racism, if we get on code and stand up bold, we won't be put out in the cold.
I thank you, King Aijalon Joseph the Ansubu. That's who you just got through listening to just now. I think he pretty much sums it up. I have no questions. Anybody else have any questions?
No, I don't.
I think he pretty much sums it up. Nothing else. There's nothing else to add on to that. The Ansubu. That was great.
Can we get a new Maki Wawa?
We can get a new Maki Wawa for that. And it was great to have you, Miss Queen Pamela. And I hope that you will come and visit with us again. Me, Miss Kelly Kid, King Aijalon the Ansubu. That would be awesome.
Great. I would love to be back and have such intense and interesting conversations as this.
Great. Awesome. Well, with that, I'm going to say that we are out of the living room. Peace, love, and light. Numaki Wawa.
Numaki Wawa.